Now I'm, at a stage in life where all sorts of things interest me that didn't so much when I was younger, like how do you age gracefully? My name's Rush Rehm. I'm a professor of TAPS and classics and artistic director of Stanford Repertory Theater. I went to university in 1967 as a freshman at Princeton. I went on an Army ROTC scholarship, and I wanted to play football. I had eventually some sort of education about both of those ideas, and so I ended up graduating with an independent major in creative writing and Greek translation. I did a translation of Euripides' Electra for my senior thesis. They had senior theses then, and a production of the play. And so what happened at Princeton was I left the Army, militarism, and football and got into the arts and politics. After I graduated from Princeton, I wasn't sure what track I would follow. I applied to art schools, I applied to theater schools and acting, and I also did some efforts to win scholarships and sort of the academy. And so I went to Melbourne, got an MA in classical studies at the University of Melbourne, but primarily based on the work I was doing in the theater on Aeschylus's Oresteia. The first thing I published was the translation I did in Melbourne of Aeschylus' Oresteia trilogy, a translation for the stage. I wrote an article when I was teaching in Melbourne before I came to graduate school on Waiting for Godot that was published, and then the first sort of big scholarly work I did was on Greek tragedy, an article on Medea, and then an article on staging of suppliant plays. A suppliant play I guess it's kind of subgenre of Greek tragedy. Supplication means you basically abject yourself before somebody and ask them for their help or protection. And for the Greeks, ancient Greeks, to do that it was a bit like a dog exposing his jugular, and that's such a crazy thing to do before another human being, because after all, the other human being simply cut it, take your money or whatever else. It's almost so crazy that the gods protect it because it's so uninstinctual. And so a suppliant is basically appealing to someone's mercy, but with the gods watching on, because the gods honor suppliants. So a play that has anything like that in it, or that features supplication as an important part of it, is sometimes called a suppliant play. Initially, I didn't find pursuing a PhD a good idea at all. I used to say to people that anybody who goes after a PhD is admission to failure. So I must admit failure. 5 years after I left Australia, I had the good fortune of living in Greece and Egypt and some other places in the world. I applied both in theater programs and in classics, and I got into both of them, not all of the ones I wanted. One that would have been the most interesting had I pursued it was Yale School of Drama, where I was actually admitted in the playwriting program. I think the world was saved some bad plays. But in any event, I ended up coming to Stanford for a PhD in drama and criticism, but I did a lot of work in classics also and ended up writing my dissertation on Euripides. So I'm interested in environmental activism, but also in scholarly work trying to relate issues of the approach to thinking about nature and Greek tragedy. So I have in the back of my head an idea about a book, I don't know if I'll write it, called The Ecology of Greek Tragedy, trying to think about what we could learn from or what kind of perspective we could get on the current environmental crisis by thinking about how tragic playwrights in 5th century Athens were bringing in issues of nature and its inexhaustibility or other into their plays. To undergraduates who care to listen, it's an extraordinary opportunity to be an undergraduate, and you should take advantage of it. And that means don't just do what you think you ought to do, and don't just think what will pay. If I'd been guided by that, I'd ended up probably wealthier than I am now, but very unhappy. Don't do that. Just don't do it. Take risks and take stuff that you didn't think you would, and don't worry about the money. That's not where it's at.